This week on Not Sam Wrestling, Jake the Snake Roberts is my guest. You never want to miss an interview with Jake the Snake Roberts. Plus, I'm going to go down my weekend in Cleveland. We're going to talk about Fastlane, what WrestleMania is looking like, Ronda Rousey, KofiMania, and more. This is Not Sam Wrestling.
This is Not Sam Wrestling.
Introducing your host from New York, here is Sam Roberts.
Whoa, what a time to be alive. Welcome to Not Sam Wrestling. And thank you all, by the way, for everybody that sent in feedback on last week's episode. The live event with the Major Brothers from the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast, Kurt Hawkins, Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona, Brian Myers, whatever you want to call them. Great guys with a great wrestling figure podcast. And Maven, how great was Maven? How amazing were those stories? Now that video will be up over at youtube.com/notsam, along with all the other videos we do, even the phone interviews, the Skype interviews, whatever. They all get recorded here in the Not Sam studio. And all those videos eventually go up at youtube.com/notsam. I think the next one that's going up is the interview with X-Pac we did a couple weeks ago. But if you're sitting there going, why does it take so long? You want these videos right away. The first place to get them is at patreon.com/notsamwrestling. Yes, the second tier people get all the video footage you can handle. State of Wrestling every week, full on video. The interviews first thing on video. And I am going to start doing unboxing videos for all you wrestling collectibles people. I went out and found the Retrofest Mattel Ric Flair figure at GameStop. And before I opened it, I said, why don't I turn the camera on and just unbox it for the folks, for you guys. So I'm going to do it for the shills over at patreon.com/notsamwrestling. First tier is audio, second tier is video, and so on and so forth. So if you want to see the unboxing stuff, go ahead and sign up at patreon.com/notsamwrestling. Boy, we're going to get into Fastlane, of course, in the state of wrestling. A lot coming off of Fastlane as we head into WrestleMania. We're certainly on the Fastlane, on the road to WrestleMania. But man, I got to tell you, if I could recommend any viewing for you, and you don't have to even sign up for Patreon to look at it, the WWE did something cool. I was in Cleveland, obviously, as part of Fastlane. I was on the kickoff show, and Pat McAfee was there, and they were trying something new with Pat, who, you know, Pat is an expert of the internet and a small business owner, and they were doing a live YouTube watch-along for Fastlane. So what they did was they took a room in the arena, and they had a giant, and I mean giant, LCD screen. They covered the entire wall with an LCD screen, and they set up some chairs and got some snacks, and they basically just put some cameras on the room, and Pat invited people in, superstars and the like, different people there with WWE, invited them in to watch the show with him live, and you guys at home could kind of do a dual screen thing where you watch the pay-per-view on one screen and then have this YouTube window open on the other. And of course, it was live as it happened, and it's still up on the WWE's YouTube channel. I ended up doing some of it with him. I'm sure a bunch of you have seen the video of the Iconics pouring popcorn all over me because that happened, which I thought was very unnecessary of Billy Kay and Peyton Royce. They seem very defensive, very aggressive, and they don't like being confronted with what I'll call the truth. But I was thinking about posting it as a podcast. I decided not to just because there's so much content to give to you guys. But if you guys didn't watch the watch-along, and I could recommend something to you, the main event of the show, The Shield versus Baron Corbin, Drew McIntyre, and Bobby Lashley, it ended up being myself, Pat McAfee, and R-Truth watching the main event together, and halfway through, Mustafa Ali joins us just for a moment or two after his match, so you see all his bumps and bruises. But the hilarity that ensued between myself, Pat McAfee, and R-Truth, it is worth a view. It is worth a listen. Go and go to the WWE's YouTube channel, find that video, and go to the end so you can watch that thing. It's just so, R-Truth is just, he's so funny. He's out of his mind. You know, I'm sitting there talking to him about losing the U.S. title, and he has no recollection of ever losing any U.S. title. He lost the title. He said he can't find it, but he didn't lose the title. It's great. Go check it out. I would recommend that you do. And, of course, McAfee is on there being, being the host that McAfee is. We'll just put it that way. So here we are. It's Not Sam Wrestling. We are officially, it used to be after the Royal Rumble, and people still do say it. After the Royal Rumble, it's okay, here we go. It's WrestleMania season. But we all know that after the Royal Rumble, it's not like we don't have a clear picture of what WrestleMania is going to look like. Even with the Royal Rumble, right? Like, Becky Lynch won the Royal Rumble, but the title match that she got wasn't official until this week at Fastlane. So, even those scenarios, you kind of take with a grain of salt, knowing, okay, it's January, we have till April, a lot happens between now and then. And especially since there's 2 pay-per-views. There's Elimination Chamber, which really starts to shape things. Then, because, the champion may not even be the champion anymore. Then, you've got Fastlane. And Fastlane answered a lot of questions. And now, and we can see it watching Raw and SmackDown. Now we are full-fledged and force going towards WrestleMania. And we'll talk a lot about that in the state of wrestling, but now is the time. And I think doing the wrestling podcast over the next 4 weeks or so is going to get really, really fun. Not that it's not always fun, but there's something magical about WrestleMania season. Even if you're a WWE hater, first of all, I don't know what you're doing, but second of all, there is something magical about WrestleMania season. Now, I got to tell you, this week, I have a very special guest, somebody that's been a part of multiple WrestleMania seasons, actually. In the early days, Jake the Snake Roberts is joining me. Jake the Snake Roberts, of course, if you followed his journey in the resurrection of Jake the Snake Roberts, I think that's what it was called, the documentary that centers around what DDP did to, in my opinion, save Jake the Snake's life. Jake the Snake was on the short list of everybody's death watch list. And he's come out of it shining. He's still got all of his personality, and he's touring the country doing spoken word shows. I would say stand-up, but it's not like it's joke. It's stories. It's what you want from Jake the Snake Roberts. And he's going to be a part of Skankfest here in New York. Skankfest is not what it sounds like. Skankfest is actually put on by a podcast called The Legion of Skanks. My buddy Louis J. Gomez does the whole thing. But it's, look it up. If you're in the city, you're going to want to get tickets to it because it's every comic you could ever possibly imagine. It's comedy, it's podcast, it's an amazing festival weekend that anybody who likes comedy will want to be a part of. And anybody who wants to hear stories from Jake the Snake Roberts will probably want to be a part of it too because he's going to be there. Yes, Jake the Snake Roberts will be there. That's where we start, and we go deep, as we tend to do. You can go back and listen to any interview that we've done here with Jake the Snake Roberts on the podcast, but, you start in a certain place, and you never quite know where you're going to end up. This was a doozy. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest this week on Not Sam Wrestling, for your enjoyment, Jake the Snake Roberts.
The Not Sam Wrestling interview.
I'd like to welcome my guest here on Not Sam Wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Jake the Snake Roberts is back. Jake, what's the haps, man?
Oh, man. It's running crazy, bro. This time of year, everybody's getting ready for Mania. And then, even people that aren't in the WWE anymore are getting ready for Mania. Not only with wrestling, but with everything for me. I've got several big tours coming up, and I'd like to talk to you about, and just everything's great, man.
Yeah, for sure. Well, how does it affect you? How does Mania week and the feeling that it's WrestleMania time, how does that start to seep into your life?
Well, you always come out of winter, you're kind of stuck in that doldrums, but as spring comes around the corner, you start waking up and start getting out more and getting around more. Right now, I've been doing a lot of Comic-Cons this time of year. And I enjoy those. You get a lot of wrestling fans come to Comic-Cons, and it's always great to visit with the fans. And now that I've started doing these tours doing comedy, they say it's comedy. I'm not so sure. Basically, all I'm doing is just retelling stories that happened back in the day, and it gives the fans an opportunity to hear what was going on behind the curtain and some of the ridiculous pranks we played on each other and the moments that we had, and whether it be in the locker room or in the ring or in a strip joint afterward, there's some pretty good stories. They are R-rated and better. Although I have checked the statute of limitations on most of the stories to make sure that I'm clear there. Some of them are pretty wrangly, and I enjoy telling those the most. I don't know why.
That's when you know you've got a good show. That's when you know you've got a good show, and before you perform it, you have to check with your lawyer to make sure that it's okay that you tell these stories. Yeah.
You know that you're going to have people on point, and it's a lot of fun. I don't hurt anybody with it. Some of the stuff is, it just shows you how insane we were back in those days. Not only were we running 30, 40, 50 days straight sometimes. Boys will be boys. And in those days, we were running hard, man, and we played hard. And I talk about all that. We have a great time doing it. I'll be doing a big show in Mania week at Starland Ballroom in Sayreville, New Jersey.
Oh, wow, that's a great venue.
And, it's right there, man.
Yeah.
And, so, then of course I'll be at WrestleCon for a couple of days, and then Mania, and then right after that I head out to El Paso to do a Comic-Con, and then on the 16th I start a tour that starts in Cedar Falls, Iowa, and then we go to Dubuque and Cedar Rapids and Burlington and Keokuk and Peoria, of all places, and Champaign, St. Louis, and Kansas City in 10 days. So
that's incredible.
Moving pretty hard, man, and it doesn't stop there. We just keep right on going, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, I just heard, I've been friends with the guys who do Skankfest for a long time here in New York, Louis J. Gomez and the Legion of Skanks guys, and they hit me up and they let me know that that's going down in New York City, June 21st to 23rd. But you're doing Skankfest, which is this giant comedy festival that they do here, and I think it's been so cool to watch. In the last, I don't know, I would say year, maybe even less than a year, to watch whatever it is that you're doing on stage, for whatever reason, your stories, maybe it's just because they're so honest, your stories seem to have gone beyond just wrestling fans. And I think it kind of, like, the Joe Rogan show, I'm sure was a huge leap for that, because I'm watching this guy, Joe Rogan, who for years has said how stupid wrestling is, have you on, and you've got him wrapped around your finger with these stories. And I think that leads to things like Skankfest and everything.
It was pretty awesome, man. And, just to be a part of anything's great. But, Skankfest, man, I love the name.
I figured you would.
It just fits everything that I do. I'm just skanks. Okay. I know you got to know her. But, I'm really excited to do that. I'm going to do 2 shows up there, man. One on Saturday, one on Sunday.
Wow.
So that's going to be awesome, man.
Well, if you're in New
all sorts of crazy stuff. I'm even going on the next Jericho thing, man. The Rock and Wrestling Rage at Sea Part 2.
I just saw that.
The second wave is coming, man. January 20th through the 24th, man. We go from Miami to Nassau. I'm a little worried about that. I'm afraid that ship may go down.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually, that's what I was just thinking as you were saying it. I don't know, Jake Roberts locked on a boat with a bunch of other wrestlers and wrestling fans for like a week. Probably not the greatest surroundings for anybody's safety.
It's not bright. It's not bright. And, that's what they get for not having me on the first one. I ain't got to make them pay.
You're going to make them pay for it this time.
You're damn right, man. It's going to be a heavy price, man. Bermuda Triangle is nothing compared to what Jake does to the tour. So, it's been rumored before, but the living proof, be there. Don't miss that, because it's going to be something else. I'm really looking forward to that, too, I mean, to get paid for being seasick, what the hell?
Yeah.
That's going to be so awesome.
You're going to earn it, too.
They're going to earn it, man. They're going to earn cleaning up after me. I'll be spewing. I ain't bullshitting, man. I get seasick at the drop of a hat, and I have a hard time in the bathtub.
Oh, boy.
I get seasick there. What the hell, But it's going to be good times. That's what I'm saying. There's just been so much come up.
Yeah.
The Joe Rogan podcast was very big for me, man, because we crossed some lines there. People that weren't wrestling fans, all of a sudden they're hey man, I caught you on Joe Rogan. You know, I didn't even know what you did. I'm like, well, wow, now you do. You know, and yeah, so it's fun.
Was there
It's fun,
anything
man.
specific, any of the stories? Because I mean, you told so many stories on the Rogan podcast. Was there anything specific that you were surprised resonated with Joe? That you go like, this is just my life. I had no idea you would take this kind of interest in it.
Yeah, Andre farting on me. Yeah, you know, I mean, really, Joe? That's what got you going? Wow, you need to raise the bar a little bit, bro. I thought the Macho Man thing would have got him, but the Andre farting thing, he loved that. You know, I'm like, wow. Now I know what to go for.
That's when like you prepare all these amazing stories and you realize, you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe I just need to go for the basics here.
Yeah, just reel it back down, man, and talk about somebody farting on you. That does it, you know.
Well, I mean,
my God, you should talk to my ex-wife. Oh, wait, she didn't say I farted. She said I shit on her. I'm sorry.
I mean, that's what I was literally just talking about the Andre documentary with somebody a couple of days ago who wasn't a wrestling fan, and the thing that stuck with them as like this is an amazing. I thought that the Andre doc was one of the great wrestling docs that they've made, and what stuck with them was the segment that they did on Andre's atomic farts and Mean Gene talking about how bad Andre's farts were. It was like it was necessary to include.
Well, people don't get, you know, the fact that he was so big that, of course his farts are going to last longer than normal people, you know, and anytime you have that much air up there fermenting for, you know, days at a time, you know, with no telling how many bottles of wine and vodka that was in that mixture, there's going to be some fermentation happening, and it's going to be nasty when it comes out. It was like when he sat on me and did that, I thought I had a birthmark on my shoulder for about a week, you know, but it was actually just a wine stain from his ass. So there you go.
How was Andre with you? There are all these stories about how Andre didn't like working with the Macho Man because of the baby oil, and he didn't like Big John Studd because he didn't like big guys. How was Andre working with you, especially since you ended up getting the DQ victory, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. Well, you know, the first time we went out, he guzzled my ass, man. I mean, just throttled me. Did not give me anything. And I came back to the locker room, and probably the dumbest thing that I ever done in my life, which is go into his locker room and confront him.
Wow.
But I did it. I called him out, man. I said, that was the worst stinking match I've ever had in my life. And if you think that's going to draw money, you're a stupid giant.
Wow.
And he just looked at me. And then I realized what I've been saying. I'm like, oh, my God, I'm looking for help. And the agents, they're running out of the room. They're leaving me in there with him. They didn't want to be around there because they figured Andre was fixing to kill me. But he just looked at me and goes, okay, boss, no problem. And then, of course, I got to realize I've got to work with him again. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
But after that, he was perfect.
Really? So are you worried?
Once you stood up to him and called him and said, you know, I'm just here to do business, man, you know, then he was good, man. And he wanted me to hit him as hard as I could. I used to tell people that's the most frustrating thing in the world when you're trying to kill somebody and they don't even know it. You know, 'cause I'd be throwing my best shots at him, man, and you know, he just, you know, that was it. You know, meanwhile I'm jamming my wrists, my elbows, and then tearing my shoulders up. And, you know, I tore a pec in half when I was wrestling him, and nearly fainted before I hit the mat because it was such pain.
And
lo and behold, he reached down and grabbed me by my arm and jerked me to my feet, and God Almighty, I passed out from the pain.
How did you tear the pec?
He held on to me. Well, he held on to me until I came back to and told me, hey, no problem, we'll be okay. And he held me, and we wrestled, and I never took a day off.
Wow.
I just kept going, man. Well, back in those days, you didn't take days off. You got hurt, man. You just kept going.
So he's carrying you through
it. I tore a pec completely in half.
And so now, since you're working with Andre every night, he's carrying you through a torn pec every single match?
Yeah, every night, man. But he was wonderful, man. Every now and then he'd do something ornery to me. Like, he used to love to knock me on my ass, and And then he'd stand on my hair, and then he'd reach down and grab my arms and pull, which ripped my hair out.
Yeah.
But that was funny, ha, 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 I tell people, I started to get up and just paintbrushing, but I decided not to. Yeah, right. But, every now and then he'd have a little fun with me, but when it came time to do business, man, he was doing business with me, and it's one of the greatest pleasures I've ever had. It was, it's that dream that you had that you say, well, that'll never happen.
Yeah.
Wrestling Andre the Giant, really? One-on-one? Are you serious? I tell fans during the comedy show, I said, wrestling fans are a bunch of assholes. They're like, wow, that's cold, Jake. What's up with that? I'm like, look, you guys were cheering me on to fight the Giant. What did I ever do to you? Y'all taking me, send the lamb to the lion. My God, did you think for a moment I had a chance? Are you serious? What have y'all been drinking? And I'll make a big joke of that. But no, just to be in the ring with him and for them to ring the bell and say, you guys wrestle. Are you serious?
Yeah.
But he made it believable. He found a way to make it believable by having me fight like a maniac. And if I hadn't fought him like that, it would have stunk. But because he made me fight so hard, it made it believable to a point.
Yeah, to a point.
Yeah.
So this
then reality came back down. So are you kidding me? I mean, let's face facts. Facts. At my best, I weighed 250.
Mm-hmm.
He weighed 550. Let me figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Jesus Christ, man. He's had bigger turds come out of his ass than me. What the hell?
Yeah, and then he left him on your shoulder. So
damn right.
So
that was pretty brutal that night, man.
So when you guys, your second match then, right? So you've had the confrontation. You went back there.
Yeah.
He said, "Okay, no problem." You don't know in your head.
And,
in your head,
no,
you're probably
I didn't,
thinking,
man. I was scared to death.
Right. So when do you realize?
Scared to death.
When do you realize? Wait a minute.
After I got in the ring with him and just looked at him, I felt it. And I could feel that he was going to handle it right, and he did. I was also in the backstage area at the time that Macho Man and him were about to go to the ring, and Andre goes, "I hate oil," and Randy Savage threw a huge bottle of oil in the trash. Now, if you know Randy Savage, you know that he wouldn't throw away a thimble full of oil. He was that tight. Randy had the first nickel he ever made in this business, man. He still had it. He didn't spend money on nothing, man. Are you kidding me? But he tossed it in the trash. Like, no problem, brother. It's gone. And he's wiping that oil off his body. Yeah.
So Andre,
you don't do things they're going to piss somebody off, especially big giants.
Andre was the cure for chronic thriftiness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah. You'd spend anything you had to keep from getting ass with him, man. I mean, I seen him toss the Iron Sheik around one night, man, for about 15 minutes, and we seen every suplex there was in the book and some that aren't in the book. New ones that have never been done since because they were crippling. I mean, tossed the poor Iron Sheik around like a rag doll, man. And him and John Studd, I was the third party in that ring with him and John Studd, and I was worried I was going to get killed by a body part flying off one of them. Jake Roberts killed by John Studd's liver. And come out, he coughed up during a match, and it landed on me.
So when you're sitting there as the referee in that John Studd Andre match, are you watching what Andre's doing, going like, "Oh, this poor man, this poor John Studd"?
Well, see, I was wrestling him, and John was the referee. And it was just scary, man, because every time Studd got near him, he'd just slash out at Studd, man. I'm like, oh my God. I kept wondering, man, if Studd goes off, man, I've got to get out of the ring somehow.
Yeah.
And let those two animals go ahead and eat each other, Because we got Tyrannosaurus against the Brontosaurus. Here we go. But it didn't happen, thank God, because it would have probably been very ugly. But
yeah, I would imagine.
That was John brought that on himself,
How so?
Well, he called Andre a freak.
Oh my God!
And said that he was the only real giant. That Andre was a freak, a circus freak boy. Oh, come on. You don't do that. Jesus Christ.
I told you this was a doozy, and we'll continue in a minute with Jake the Snake Roberts. But first, I told you at the beginning of the show we were talking about WrestleMania season and how coming to New York, it means everything. There is so much going on over WrestleMania weekend that if you're making the trip out east, you're going to want to see as much as humanly possible. And I know sometimes you go, well, I got tickets to WrestleMania, so I'm going to come to New York and, we'll probably sightsee for a while, and then on Sunday we'll go to the show. You don't have to worry about that. I know that it is complicated to get tickets to every event that you want to go see. I get it. I've been there before. But I'm about to make life easy for you. What if I told you you could easily get tickets to just about everything that you wanted to see in New York WrestleMania weekend? That includes all the wrestling shows. If you want to take a break from wrestling, you want to go see a comedy show like Jake Roberts is talking about. You want to go see a Broadway show. You want to come back at a different time of year. You want to go to a baseball game, football game. You want to check out a basketball game if James Dolan will let you in the building. Whatever you want to do, we can get you tickets, and we can get them easy, and we can get them through SeatGeek. Yes, SeatGeek goes through all the sites. They pull millions of tickets into one place, so you can easily find the seat you want for a price you're willing to pay. Every purchase is fully guaranteed, so you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. Make SeatGeek your go-to ticket source for everything. Sports, concerts, comedy, theater. I tried to tell you. It's so easy. I have the SeatGeek app on my phone. If I just want to see what events are playing near me, I just let it search by my location. If I know something's coming up, I can search by anything I want. If it's a band, if it's a sporting organization, whatever I want. Look it up. It'll tell you all the events. You click the event. It shows you a seating chart. It ranks the tickets that are available on the seating chart in different colors so you can tell what value you're getting. If this is a super expensive ticket or if they found a great deal, they can hook you up. However you are looking to get your tickets, SeatGeek has you covered. Best of all, my listeners are getting $10 off their first SeatGeek purchase. Yes, $10 off. All you need to do is download the SeatGeek app and enter promo code SAM today, S-A-M. Promo code SAM for $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Get it on your phone. Get $10 off. SeatGeek, life's an event. We have the tickets. And back to Jake the Snake. So it wasn't just that Andre had problems with other big guys. He had problems with guys that called him out like that.
Right. That talk shit.
Right.
And hey, big guys have feelings too, man. And Andre put up with enough, traveling, from people staring at him, pointing at him, laughing at him, everything, And I was around some of those, man, and I just tell people, just leave the son of a bitch alone, for Christ's sake, man.
Yeah.
God damn, man.
Yeah.
Give it a break, man.
Does that rank as your favorite rivalry you had during your WWF run?
No, it's one of them. But me and Steamboat was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
man.
of course.
And, me and Savage was a lot of fun.
Sure.
Once I got Randy cooled down a little bit, but
it was tough to get Randy.
Yeah.
It was tough to get him on board at first.
Yeah, well, because of what happened with his in-laws, Bottom line is, Randy had promised them years before that Elizabeth would never be involved in the wrestling part of it. And I slapped her and did all that crap to her and all that shit. And, the grandparents told Randy not to come back to the house.
Wow.
Yeah. And because, Randy, being proud as he was and everything, he never smartened them up that it was a business.
Sure.
And so they thought it was all real. That's all fine and dandy, whenever nothing's happening. But, when money's being made, things do happen. And so whenever I did slap her and all that shit, they took that personal and told Randy not to ever come back to their house. They'd shoot his ass. So
Wow.
That's the reason that angle got cut off so soon, man. We were supposed to have gone up to Mania with it. But Randy said, "You're going to cook this up, man. I can't even go home. What the fuck, man?"
Oh my God! See, like
Each night I had to fight him, man.
Oh my God! You're the one guy probably out of everybody. I know there's other guys that aren't, but you are probably the greatest example of a guy who's just never been afraid of heat. You've never been afraid of being the bad guy and of doing the things that the audience is going to hate. Do you think? Does Does that come naturally to you? Like, do you just know, like
It's just common sense.
Right.
To me, really, the things that I do. I mean, a lot of times guys outthink themselves, man. They try to make something so elaborate the fans can't keep up with it.
Mm-hmm.
So many different angles to come up with this and be so sneaky. No, just go back to simple bullshit, man.
Right.
People understand that, and it strikes a serious chord in their body when you do, because everybody believes it.
Mm-hmm.
And if everybody in the room believes it, now you got something to work with.
Right.
And I've always been a part of that, man. And, of course, I was in Dallas, Texas, wrestling Sting, and the guy stood up and took out a pistol and started shooting at me.
Right.
And I got under the ring pretty damn quick. Of course, Sting being a babyface, stupid they are. He's standing in the ring, woo, all that crap. I'm like, you're a stupid motherfucker, man. You're fixing to get shot,
Now, was that incident?
That's fun.
Was that incident on the lead up to like the spin the wheel, make the deal? Is that era?
Yeah.
Which is amazing because like of all the sort of moments in your career that you would probably just as soon forget, that would be one of the rivalries, I would imagine. But obviously, but obviously you were doing so well in the build up to it that somebody was trying to murder you with a gun.
Yeah, that was Dallas, Texas. I thought for a minute it might be family because I was born about 60 miles from there. It wasn't. It wasn't, damn it.
Does that boggle your mind when you're going like, oh my God, like we have so much potential here. I've got people so fired up that there's a guy in Dallas that wants to shoot me, and we still can't execute properly.
No, just stupid shit, man. So frustrating, bro. And then, of course, you add Bill Watson on it. And Bill, he wanted to. His idea was to knock me off real quick and to say, see how much better WCW's talent is than WWF. This guy came from WWF, and we squashed him in the first angle. That's brilliant, Bill. Stupid bastard. That piece of crap, man. Don't even get me started there. I'd go for hours on that prick.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is, man. I try not to think about him because every time I do, I want to take a shit. So there we go.
And there's only so much in you. There's only so much.
Exactly, man. I'll be exasperated at the end of this damn interview. I'll weigh about 10 pounds.
Yeah, I don't want you to get dehydrated.
I don't want this shit come right out of me, man. Oh, man.
I don't want you to get dehydrated.
No. Especially thinking about him. My God.
So we were talking about Macho Man and that storyline being cut short. I was thinking about it because I was reading a story about, you and Hogan and that angle being cut off before it started because people were chanting your name. You were too popular.
DDT.
Right.
Thanks a lot, asshole.
Yeah, another time the wrestling fans just failed you completely.
Yeah, it cost me millions. Thank you very much.
So you've got the Hogan thing scrapped. You've got the Macho Man thing that's supposed to go to WrestleMania. That gets scrapped. And then just today when I was thinking of
Warrior.
That's what I was thinking about. Before we did this interview, and I'm thinking about my Jake Roberts memories, I'm thinking about the lead up to SummerSlam 91 and all these Ultimate Warrior vignettes and the fact that I remember as a kid, I'm probably, I don't know, 7 years old when that thing is happening. And I still, at 35, I still remember being 7 years old and going, I can't wait for this Ultimate Warrior to get his hands.
Happened.
And so when you find out the Warrior has held up Vince for money at SummerSlam, and it gets the Warrior fired, are you sitting there going, "Oh, what the hell did you do now?"
Yeah, I was standing right there, man, by the curtain whenever Warrior came back through. Vince fired him.
Oh,
You're fired. Get the fuck out of my building.
Oh,
I'm like, what? And he goes, Jake, you have the worst luck. I'm like, wow. Thanks a lot.
I mean, they gave you the...
I gotta say this. There was some serious heat between me and Warrior. Really
real
serious heat. But, kill heat. But slightly, just 2 days before he died, he came back to me and apologized for that whole mess. And, and I guess, he stood up and he manned up for it, and really apologized. And it meant a lot to him for him to do that.
Yeah.
I was pretty damned upset, considering that I had to go to him and ask him to shoot an angle with me to okay it. You know,
Yeah.
Vince had me go to him and ask permission to shoot an angle with him. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Tell him to fucking work with me, damn it.
Yeah, you're the boss.
You know, you're the boss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's not the way it was done up there, man.
Wow. And
You know.
I mean, but it just, I mean, and you know, obviously the Warrior was a different guy by the time he passed away, but going back then, I mean, it boggles the mind that somebody could have it that good in an organization like that where the boss can't even tell them what to do and they still find a way to screw
Sean
it up.
and Brett. You know, Sean and Brett used to pull the same crap.
Mm-hmm.
I was writing television then, and sometimes we'd get stuck at Vince's house waiting for Vince to get off the phone because he'd have 3 and 4 hour conversations with Brett and Sean trying to get them to talk to each other and wrestle each other. Are you fucking kidding me? Fire both the little dumb shit. You know? I'm serious. I fired them both, man. Get the fuck out, man.
Did you say that?
Do your damn job, guys. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, when Vince comes back to the table, do you go, what are you
Yeah,
doing?
I told him. Sorry, I can't believe. I told you, I can't believe you, Vince. I said that the wrestlers, what did I say? In a nut house, you have the patients are running the asylum now. That's great.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And what
the hell's going on?
I mean, did Vince have any?
He just looked at me and shook his head.
That's it.
That's all he did.
No explanation.
I'm like, wow, really.
And are you sitting there
You know,
going?
I've never been a fan of you know, guys pulling crap like that or clicks, if you will.
Sure.
I don't get into all that bullshit, you know, to manipulate the game by, you know, you pouting and you pouting together. You're going to pout, man. It's a privilege to get in that damn ring. Okay? It's a privilege. You know, and if you get chosen to get in there, man, get your ass in there and hang on for your life. But don't play this game where you're going to milk it, man, and play some game where you're going to hold out and hold this shit. I don't give a shit if you're Steve Austin or Hulk Hogan or whoever, man. Nobody has the right to do that.
Yeah, I mean, are you sitting there going, man, because when you think about it, right, when you think about the late 80s, early 90s, in terms of all the WWE merchandise, there was 3 faces everywhere. There was Hogan, there was Warrior, and there was Jake Roberts. I mean, that was just, I'm not trying to blow smoke. It's just the way it was.
Well, I know, man.
Are you sitting there going, you mean to tell me that I could have been calling my own shots all these years?
Yeah, no
like...
shit. No shit. Well, that I take out on myself, you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's bullshit, man, and I still feel that way, and shame on them. You know, it's bullshit, man. It's bad business. It's bad for everybody.
Have you talked to those guys?
Here's these guys that are holding up Vince for $1 million. Well, hey, what about the dumbasses like me that put these guys over?
Right.
You know, we're not getting $1 million.
Right.
You know, the fuck, man.
Every time you get close, it gets canceled anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, have you talked you talked to those guys since then? Like, because I know, I mean, you know, I don't know Brett, but I know that, like, I feel
about business. I said hello to Brett a couple of times,
Yeah.
and Sean said hello to me, but that's been it, man. I have no need to go into all that crap with them. It's not gonna teach them anything.
Right.
You know, hey, at the end of the day, they came out pretty damn good.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Sean at least is a different person.
I'm the one back here sucking tit, you know, saying I gotta still go to work, you know.
Yeah.
I'm the stupid ass. You know, I get that. You know, I get that, man. And yeah, their argument could be, yeah, well, look at me, man. I've got, you know, $10 million in my bank.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have, Jake? Well, I give $10 million to my drug dealer trying to get over your bullshit. You know.
Well, you know what? You got Skankfest.
Yeah, I do have Skankfest.
So?
I'm looking forward to doing it.
Yeah. Now,
listen, bro, I'm gonna have to get off of here pretty quick, man.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to
I have to get down the road.
Before I let you go, one other thing that I wanted to talk to you about was around that same era, right? I wanted to talk to you about Undertaker, your last quick program before you left for WCW. And you're back to being a bad guy. The Undertaker is now becoming a good guy. Is it difficult for you in that scenario? Because I feel like throughout the history of Jake Roberts, you've always been that kind of dark, methodical, slow-moving figure, and now you've got to share the ring with The Undertaker, who's supposed to be even darker and even more methodical and even slow-moving. Do you have to figure out how to adjust your style so that The Undertaker can still...
No, not at all. Not at all, man. Go out and do your thing, let him do his, and the fans are going to decide what they want to do with it.
I got you.
You know what I'm saying? And that's where a lot of guys make that mistake. The worst in the world, God bless him, it was Lex Luger. Lex Luger, one week he's a heel, he'd go to the ring walking slow and being snarly and stuff. The next week he's a babyface and he'd run the ring high-fiving everybody. Dude, you don't change. Let the people change.
Yeah.
See, that's where guys kill their characters off. You never, ever want to piss on yourself, man. It's a good thing not to piss on yourself.
Yeah.
And you do that by destroying your credibility. Once you destroy your credibility with the fans, you never, never, ever get it back.
Mm-hmm.
Bingo.
I get it.
That's the key to success.
Have you thought at all about, and I know you've talked, you said you had a run doing this before and it didn't work out, but that was a lifetime ago. You're a different person now. WWE has just brought in a whole bunch of people into backstage roles. Have you thought about putting feelers out there to see if there's any interest in going back to WWE as a backstage producer, creative person, whatever it is?
It just wouldn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a real problem when it comes to speaking my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I call chicken shit. I call assholes, and I can't do it, man. My belief in wrestling does not fit what they're doing today. I feel like they go out and destroy credibility. They destroy wrestling, for all that matter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like what the product is today. Nobody sells a damn thing. Everything's a friggin' high spot. The most dangerous wrestling hole today is the schoolboy. It beats more people than anything else. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you going to tell me I can hit you with a sledgehammer, but I can't beat you with it?
Mm-hmm.
I got to beat you with a goddamn schoolboy. What in the fuck is wrong with this?
Yeah.
Look at what you're doing, guys. Stop it. You're making me sick.
Yeah, man.
Quit pissing on the business that's been so good to so many people, man. And fans love real good wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And you can still go out and grab an arm and work a hold and still have one hell of a damn match. When's the last time you seen somebody charge the ring? A fan. Well, it doesn't happen anymore.
Right.
Why? Because nobody believes the bullshit they're doing. Give it a break. What the hell, man?
Yeah, man.
All right. I'm out of here.
All right, bud. Well, listen, SkankFestNYC.com is the place to go to get tickets to see Jake Roberts at Skankfest, and I appreciate you giving me some time, Jake. It's always good talking to you.
Well, let's do it again. I just get winded after a little bit, man. My brain starts to scoot around, so...
No worries.
Something about those concussions, man. I start getting kind of flighty. It's a horrible feeling for me, man. I'm being really honest with you here.
I appreciate it, man.
I started hyperventilating because I know that my mouth's fixing to get like marbles, and I get frustrated, and it's embarrassing.
Will you relax,
so
man?
When I start feeling that come on, I got to get off.
Yeah, well, you know when to call it then.
Not that way. Not that way, but get off.
Well, if that's
whatever it takes.
If that's what you need to do, go do it.
Again, I hope. Let's do it again sometime.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much, man.
Here is Sam Roberts.
How great was that, huh? Jake the Snake Roberts. Now, I don't really agree with him, in terms of the wrestling style of today. Obviously, I like the wrestling style of today. I think that, and it's tough for people that maybe were around in a different era, but you do have to evolve. And I would have had this conversation with him, but clearly he had to get off the phone. But I think you do have to evolve anything. I think sports evolve, but certainly forms of entertainment. Entertainment evolves quicker than anything. And that's because entertainment has to evolve at the same speed of people's attention spans. Wrestling has always been a reflection of its audience. And I think that that's true. It's true anytime wrestling is successful. When wrestling is successful, it is because it is properly reflecting its audience. And, I think that in the world that we live in today, the attention span of that audience is getting shorter and shorter, and that's because there's more entertainment everywhere you look. WWE always talks about how really everything in entertainment is their competition. And I think that that's true for any wrestling organization. I also think that it gets to a point where, those of us that have been watching wrestling for years and years and years, we've seen everything. And sometimes the price of innovation is upsetting tradition. And I think that's what's happening. I do think that Jake the Snake should look past that and maybe focus more on the storyline aspects of things and try to contribute creatively there. But maybe he's happier doing what he's doing. Maybe he's happier just going out on the road, being independent, and getting to tell his stories, because he's great at that too. So check out Jake the Snake if he's going to be in a town near you at any point. And big congratulations goes to Booker T, the two-time Hall of Famer. It's going to be a big year for the Hall of Fame. Shawn Michaels and Booker T both joining the Two Ring Club. They're going to be joining alongside Ric Flair, as it was announced this week that Harlem Heat is going into the Hall of Fame. Booker T and Stevie Ray. It's impossible to argue that Harlem Heat shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. When you go through tag teams of that era, Harlem Heat is the top of the heap, you know? And if Harlem Heat hadn't, it's not like Booker T's success as a singles wrestler came out of nowhere. You know, it came from Harlem Heat. There were very few acts in the early to mid 90s, say 93, 94, in WCW that were successful that were not coming from WWE. That's just the facts. Acts that people still talk about to this day in that era of WCW, if they weren't guys that got famous in WWE, there's really not many acts that you can bring up. And one of those acts is Harlem Heat, man. Harlem Heat they were ahead of their time. They were cool. I remember as a kid, and this is why they stick out to me. I'm watching wrestling, 93. And, I watch WCW Saturdays at 6:05. I turn on WCW Saturday night. I never get the pay-per-views because, I'm a kid. I only got so much money, and I'm paying the pay-per-views. My dad and I split the pay-per-views. But I got all the WWE pay-per-views, but I never got the WCW pay-per-views. So, I would watch all the Clash of the Champions. I would watch whatever I could from WCW. Main event, Saturday night, WCW Worldwide with the spinning ring, all that stuff. But there was always something, and this is pre-NWO, this is pre all that stuff. This is even pre-Nitro. And, there was always something about it that seemed like second rate. I remember even when Macho Man went over, I was like, oh my God, I hope Macho Man doesn't go to WCW. And it was like heartbreaking almost, because the Macho Man that I wanted to remember was the WWE's Macho Man. But Harlem Heat, for some reason, resonated with me. Harlem Heat debuted in WCW, and I was like, man, that's a cool tag team. I like watching Harlem Heat matches. There were two tag teams actually in WCW that did that for me right around the same era. And I would put both of these tag teams in the Hall of Fame, quite frankly. One was the Harlem Heat, and the other was the Hollywood Blondes. The Hollywood Blondes, that music would come on. And Austin would be sitting there doing the camera motion, spinning it with one hand and holding it up, and Brian Pillman, and they had their matching vests and everything, but they were not corny, they were bad guys. I thought the Hollywood Blondes were so cool, and I thought Harlem Heat was so cool. So I'm really happy that Harlem Heat's going into the Hall of Fame, and I'm really happy that somebody that has contributed as much to wrestling and continues to contribute as much to wrestling as Booker T does is ending up in the Two Ring Club. I don't think that anybody would have predicted that Booker T would be one of the first three people to get into that club. But when you break it down, it's tough to argue that he shouldn't be in that club. So congratulations to Booker. We got a lot to talk about. Let's get right into it. It's time for the State of Wrestling.
It's now time for this week's State of Wrestling.
It's State of Wrestling time for 229. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Of course, everybody who's watching this live or taped over at Patreon, different tiers for different levels. $15 a month gets you access to watch State of Wrestling live every Wednesday as I record it. $9 gets you access to watch the entire State of Wrestling immediately after it becomes available over at patreon.com/NotSamWrestling. And of course, we want to shout out a Hall of Famer level Not Sam shill every week here on Not Sam Wrestling. And this week, it's none other than WWE Front Row. Thank you, buddy. I always appreciate it. Let's get in to what the State of Wrestling is all about, and that is the top 5 stories of the week from the world of professional wrestling and sports entertainment, according to yours truly, the last professional broadcaster, Sam Roberts. The last professional broadcaster is cited on the WWE Network, is cited on Flagrant 2 is cited on Jim Norton and Sam Roberts on Sirius XM all this week, by the way. It's been a busy, busy week. Let's get into it. Story number 5 goes back to the WWE Network, what I was doing in Cleveland this week. It's Fastlane. Let's go over what happened at Fastlane for story number 5 in the state of wrestling. So mixed reviews on the pay-per-view for sure, but my feedback, the reviews that I read, the stuff that I saw on in the Twitterverse and on Reddit and all over the internet was far more positive than negative, and my takeaway was far more positive than negative. I thought that everything at Fastlane felt like it was going somewhere. It was either paid off or it felt like there was a purpose to what's happening here. A lot of times, especially at this stage in the game where we're close to WrestleMania, but not that close, meaning we have 4 weeks to build, and we had 4 weeks from the time of Fastlane. Now it's closer to 3 weeks, but at Fastlane, we've got 4 weeks to WrestleMania. So technically, you do still have a couple of weeks to kind of figure out exactly what you're doing if you're not sure. But the best case scenario for all of us fans is that we want to believe that the WWE knows exactly what they're doing, and that the reason we're going into a pay-per-view like Fastlane is because there's some story to tell that's going to lead us to a place where we're all excited. I was also on Wade Keller's podcast at the end of last week, and we were talking about that and how, I think all of us kind of have an idea of the direction that WrestleMania is going in, but a lot of questions are yet to be answered, and that's what Fastlane was all about. And I feel like Fastlane did give us a picture of what's going on. Let's talk about some of the bigger incidents that happened. Of course, it started, I'd say the first big shot of the night was Shane McMahon turning on The Miz. There was no place to go, I don't think, between Shane McMahon and The Miz but to break them up, and to break them up now. The fact is that to make them seem like a better tag team than the Usos long-term would have been completely foolish. As I've said now, I think multiple times on the kickoff show, and as I've said over and over here on Not Sam Wrestling, the Usos are the best tag team of the last decade. So when you've got something like that, and you've got them on your roster, the last thing in the world that you want to do is, for short-term benefit, make them look like they're anything but that. And if you watch their performance in the last 2 matches with Shane and The Miz, if you watch their promo on SmackDown this week, which if you haven't seen it, go search it out. It's all over the internet. You can find it. It's incredible. The Usos are absolutely incredible, and somehow they just keep getting better and better and better and better. With Shane and The Miz, I think that story being told, they did a really nice job of starting a story in, what was it? I guess November. Technically, this story starts with the Crown Jewel pay-per-view and the WWE World Cup trophy. Technically, that's where this story starts. So you're talking about a story arc that lasts a good 5 months, and that now is going to get paid off at WrestleMania. I mean, when was the last time that you had a story that was told this well, that kept your attention, and that worked on pretty much every level? Think about it. When The Miz and Shane McMahon won the tag titles at the Royal Rumble, people were excited. I mean, as much as at first maybe you didn't quite understand what was going on between Shane and The Miz, by the time you got to January, people were on board. Everybody was on board, quite frankly. And it was the first time ever in his WWE career that The Miz is a good guy was actually working, that people were buying into it, that this idea that we liked seeing Shane McMahon and The Miz as besties. It was fun, it was entertaining, and we believed it. I think that, the idea of Miz wanting to please his father, I can believe The Miz, at the age that he's at, is still thinking about things like pleasing his father. My dad texts me stuff, and he goes, "Hey, man, great job today." And you know what I say? "New number, who dis?" At this point in my life, I've got to be okay with it. It's not always nice to get approval, but you can't be hunting for daddy's approval. And the fact that The Miz is doing that actually portrays him as somebody that's more vulnerable, and therefore somebody that should be the one who is kind of taking on the good guy role. But I think that most of us even if we thought that the turn was going to happen, and I think a bunch of people did, if you thought about it, most of us probably thought that The Miz would turn on Shane McMahon. You were kind of watching this group come together, this tag team come together, knowing that on some level, The Miz is acting in self-interest. The Miz wants to be partners with the boss's son, knowing he's going to get rematches more easily, knowing he's going to get higher spots on the card more likely, knowing he's going to get championship matches, right? The road to becoming a tag team champion is a lot easier when the boss's kid is your partner than when it's, some random jamoke. So, unless you're Braun Strowman and you can pick a 7-year-old out of the crowd. But the idea that Shane would turn on The Miz, I think, is not something that we saw coming. I love Shane's new bad guy move of grabbing somebody by the jaw. First he did it to Mr. The Miz, and then he turned around on SmackDown and grabbed Greg Hamilton. Say that 10 times fast. Grabbed Greg Hamilton by his jowls, made him announce him 3 times, and it really worked. By the time that Greg Hamilton got to the final Shane McMahon announcement, boo, boo, and that's what we want. We want people booing the bad guys. And then we get straight to SmackDown, and we know what's coming, right? As soon as we see Shane McMahon turn on The Miz, we know, okay, we're leading to a Miz-Shane McMahon WrestleMania match. So instead of dragging that out for 2 weeks and then finally saying, all right, you want a match, we'll do it at WrestleMania, like we knew this was going to happen, we just come right out on SmackDown and say it. Shane goes, I'm a McMahon, by the way. Let's do this match at WrestleMania. And boom, we're off to the races. For the next 3 weeks on SmackDown, we can build towards a match that we know is coming. And I think it's going to work. It'll be interesting to see what happens after WrestleMania. Personally, I hope The Miz gets the victory. He'll be the good guy, and I think The Miz, after this year, I think we need to be reminded that The Miz is championship caliber in terms of being a singles star. But it'll be interesting to see what happens to him after the Shane McMahon story is over. I don't know if The Miz, as a good guy, is going to be able to function without Shane McMahon as a foil. So I wouldn't be shocked if Miz wins at WrestleMania and then not long after goes back to being a bad guy, but probably one of the top bad guys on the show, which is good. That's exactly where The Miz should be, quite frankly. So either way, I think it's a good thing. We're going to talk about the Kofi stuff later. I thought the Kofi stuff was almost a throwback in the sense that it's been a long time. Shouldn't have left you without a hot beat to step to. It's been a long time since it felt like the unpredictability. People talk about the Attitude Era a lot, and it wasn't just kind of curses and blood and violence and all this stuff. There was also this feeling that as you were watching WWE programming, whether it was Raw, SmackDown, a pay-per-view, that it was this living, breathing thing, and at any moment, chaos could erupt. And we're kind of starting to get back to that with the inclusion of the McMahons as the authority figures, not a specific general manager. The idea that, at the show, we're going, on the kickoff, we go, okay, Kofi Kingston is going to be involved in this show. Once the show starts, okay, it is going to be a triple threat. Then Kofi gets to the ring, but this isn't the triple threat. The triple threat's happening later. And then we get to the triple threat after Kofi's been beaten by 2 guys, and he's not even in it. I mean, it's old school, unpredictable storytelling to me. And you have to be careful with that because all of a sudden the match that was advertised, which is Daniel Bryan and Kevin Owens, is not happening. You're making it a triple threat match, which worked this time because I don't think anybody was disappointed that Mustafa Ali was added to that match. Don't get me wrong. But it can work against you in the sense that, like, let's say they decide WrestleMania is the time we're going to do it, Kofi versus Bryan, and that's going to be the match. If that ends up being a triple threat at the last minute, or at WrestleMania they go, okay, we're adding Kevin Owens into this match, I think that would disappoint people. So, you have to pick and choose your shots, but so far WWE has done that very, very well. Of course, you had your Shield reunion, which, I still say is doesn't make any sense. I mean, and maybe I'm just not a forgiving man, but I don't know. I don't understand the sudden change of heart for Dean Ambrose. It's not like when he turned on Seth, he didn't have Roman in his mind. He did it the same night that Roman announced he was leaving. So still doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But it was good to see Roman back in the ring. The big story, I think, that had a lot of people talking, and this was probably the most controversial moment of the night, was Ronda Rousey interfering in the Charlotte-Becky match. You know, some people thought it was cheap. First of all, we haven't really talked about the whole Ronda Rousey story that's going on right now, that she's done a full heel turn. She's talking about wrestling being fake. She's cursing on YouTube. She's saying dastardly things all of a sudden. Look, I'm not mad at anything Ronda Rousey's doing. First of all, the idea that she came in and interfered in the match and made it so that Becky won, it made perfect sense to me. In fact, it was honestly my desired outcome. In my head, I'm thinking Ronda Rousey is going to want to get her hands on Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. She can ensure that she does. By the way, even before she had this heel turn, if you remember, this whole thing started because Stephanie McMahon was going to make Charlotte versus Becky for the Raw Women's Championship because Ronda Rousey had laid the title down. The reason Ronda Rousey laid the title down was because she was so upset because she wanted her match with Becky Lynch. The fact that she's now turned heel and taken the title back after laying it down, I have not been led to believe, because she's a badass bad guy, not a chicken bad guy. Nothing has led me to believe that Ronda Rousey would no longer want to wrestle Becky Lynch. She said she wanted to fight her. I would imagine now she wants to fight her more than ever. So the idea that she would come out and ensure that she gets to fight Becky Lynch, I think that's even better. I also think that, you know, you don't want to give Becky Lynch a clean victory right now over Charlotte. You know, if you give Becky Lynch a clean victory over Charlotte right now, then what you're saying is Becky Lynch has the ability to beat Charlotte. Let's concentrate on Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch. And I think that the whole reason, because a lot of people say that this story with Ronda and Becky did not need all of this set decoration, did not need Ronda Rousey losing her mind on the fans, did not need, it just becomes so convoluted, did not need Becky's leg injury and suspension and arrest and blah, 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 blah. And you're right. The story between Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch did not need all this stuff. But if you decide you want to incorporate Charlotte into this match, you go, you know what? I want this match to be a triple threat. I want Charlotte involved. Point blank. Now, I've got to figure out how Charlotte fits into this story. And I think a lot of the complications that have arisen from the story have more to do with getting Charlotte involved in the thing. You know, because before this, it was just Ronda, Becky, Ronda, Becky, Ronda, Becky. Well, how do we get Charlotte in there where Becky and Charlotte and Becky and Ronda and Becky and Charlotte and Ronda and, you know, everybody, it just has all this animosity brewing between all three. And I think you have found a way. I don't think this is the only way to do it, but I think in the grand scheme of things, WWE has found a way to involve all three women and make it about all three of them and not just the Ronda Becky story with Charlotte getting involved, because that's the last thing they want to portray. The last thing they want is what we were all afraid of, which is just throwing Charlotte in for the sake of throwing Charlotte in. Now, because Ronda is getting so involved in business between Becky and Charlotte, and the story between Becky and Charlotte is so well told, there is a reason for being that Charlotte's there. So I think that that's what a lot of this has to do with. Now, this idea that Becky Lynch is undervaluing the entire industry of professional wrestling by talking about things being fake and this is a joke and I'm going to mop the floor with these girls and blah, 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 blah. If Becky Lynch walks out of WrestleMania the Raw Women's Champion, nothing that Ronda Rousey has said on YouTube will take that moment away. First of all, nothing Ronda Rousey said on YouTube is stuff that we don't know already. This idea, well, I don't want it to be rubbed in my face. You're sitting there, and this is what I don't understand. And maybe I shouldn't even be drawing attention to it. But we sit there, and we can clearly identify as wrestling fans that Ronda Rousey is the quote-unquote heel. Ronda Rousey is the bad guy in this match. Charlotte is also a bad guy, but Ronda Rousey went from being a good guy to being a bad guy. You are now going on the internet and typing all day, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook or on your blog or your Reddit post or whatever it is, about how much you don't like what Ronda Rousey is doing. I hate that Ronda Rousey did that YouTube video. It's angering you. You're so upset about it. And you sit there and go, this is a horrible thing. She's ruining everything. And it's going to bring you to the point where you're going to go to WrestleMania or you're going to watch WrestleMania at home and Ronda Rousey is going to come out and you're going to say, boo, boo. And then Becky's going to come out and you're going to say, yay, yay. And we're acting like something catastrophically wrong is happening. It's not. This is storytelling in 2019. This is storytelling to an educated fan base. We're getting to the point now where the fan base of professional wrestling is educated. So we could either live in this meta world where wrestling fans are kind of operating under this notion that they are a part of the show and should be treated as such, or we're doing what WWE is doing with people like Ronda Rousey and actually making you feel things for the characters. If you just told this story in a traditional way, you would be booing booing Ronda Rousey and cheering Becky Lynch, but you'd be doing that because you felt like, yeah, this is my job as a wrestling fan. Being a wrestling fan is not a job. Being a wrestling fan is supposed to hit you emotionally. And WWE has figured out a way where while the people who were already booing Ronda Rousey, how about Ronda gives you a reason to boo her? And let's not make it some wrestling reason. Let's make it a Ronda Rousey reason. Ronda Rousey is not coming in as a character. Ronda Rousey is coming in as an MMA legend. The baddest woman on the planet. The woman that opened the doors of female mixed martial arts fighting, legitimate shoot fighting for women to the world. Before Ronda Rousey, Dana White said there will never be female fighters in the UFC. Ronda Rousey came along and main evented multiple UFC pay-per-views. And we now watch UFC, and there are women on a regular basis not only fighting, but main eventing those pay-per-views. And Ronda Rousey is the person that opened that door. She can beat up the women of the WWE. We know this. That's why she's there. We know that Ronda Rousey can beat up the WWE women. And WrestleMania is a show that attracts mainstream fans, not just hardcore wrestling fans. We freely admit from the beginning the Ronda Rousey match at WrestleMania is important because it's going to attract non-wrestling fans. Ronda Rousey is a household name. And the person or people that are in the Ronda Rousey match with her are going to be made into bigger stars for it. However, if you're not a giant wrestling fan and you're just watching to see what Ronda Rousey is doing right now, and you watch this show and it's portrayed as Ronda Rousey is a professional wrestler who's got an equal shot at as any other professional wrestler does, you're going to sit there and go like, oh, this is like soap opera. Oh, this is like play pretend, I guess. As opposed to watching a video package that is Ronda Rousey saying, we all know I can beat up both of you with one hand tied behind my back. You're going to get badly hurt. And watching Ronda Rousey kick Becky Lynch's ass and kick Charlotte's ass. If that's the story that's being told, people that knew Ronda and her history before pro wrestling are going like, yeah, that's what I thought would happen. Because Ronda Rousey is a legit badass. Now we get in the ring and we figure out how to tell a story where if somebody can beat Ronda Rousey, all of a sudden it means much more. If Becky Lynch pins Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania, or makes her tap, I don't think she will, but I mean, who knows? The disarmor is her finisher. If Becky Lynch defeats Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania, it will mean more, not less, because of Ronda Rousey's build up to this match, in my personal opinion. Let's move on, and that goes back to Fastlane, which was story number 5, and the fact that Ronda wanting to ensure that Becky Lynch is in that match makes perfect narrative sense to me. Let's go to story number 4, and that's what we've learned is going down at WrestleMania. Of course, we talked about Miz versus Shane a little bit. The other two matches, Alexa Bliss hosting, which is interesting, and, I hope that Alexa Bliss's health is okay. Like, I do hope that at some point she can get back in the ring on a regular basis, but luckily, she's so entertaining. Like, she's just so good on a microphone that I don't think she'll ever have a problem finding a place in WWE and finding a reason for being, because people just want to see Alexa Bliss. But we've got what appears to be AJ Styles versus Randy Orton, which SmackDown completely sold me on. AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. You've got Randy Orton, the tried and true WWE veteran at this point, kind of downplaying the independence and the road that AJ Styles had to take to get here. AJ Styles acknowledging, like, yeah, you're right, I took a different road. You couldn't have survived on my road. I'm making it in WWE. You couldn't have made it on the indies. Randy Orton's talking about Dixie Carter. AJ Styles is talking about diamond cutters. It's amazing. It's amazing. And again, it's what we were talking about before. It feels like real life. They're saying the things that we as wrestling fans are thinking. The WWE is catering to an educated fan base. And I think that it's awesome. I think that it's what is going to attract us to stuff like this. AJ Styles versus Randy Orton on paper, you go, oh, okay. But AJ Styles and Randy Orton on microphones convinced me on SmackDown that I wanted to see this match, And I think it should be addressed. I talked about it a little bit on the kickoff show, but, the idea that AJ Styles in April, March and April of 2019 is not the AJ Styles of even 6 months ago. I mean, let's be honest. AJ Styles at this point was not even talked about for the WWE Championship match at WrestleMania this year. So, clearly he is not the performer that he was 6 months ago. He may find his way back there, but right now he isn't, and I hope that Randy Orton kind of brings that up. I'm really looking forward to it. I think that it's going to be good, and it looks like, it would appear, based on Raw, that we're going to get Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns. The big rumor, which again, these rumors are so stupid. One guy sends out a tweet. I think this is going to happen, and like 5 quote-unquote news sites are going like, oh, reports are, based on this one guy's Twitter. The guy didn't even work for WWE. What are you reporting on? It looks like it's going to be Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns, not the rumored Baron Corbin versus Roman Reigns. And I think that that's the move. I think that doing Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns, it puts Drew on a pedestal. I think that already you created a Drew McIntyre on Raw that makes you feel like, okay, this is a serious competitor for Roman Reigns. I think that Drew McIntyre, excuse me, I think that having Roman Reigns beat Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania, it'll feel like, number one, Roman Reigns has accomplished something, and number two, I think Drew McIntyre will be even better for it coming off of that show, whether he wins or loses. But I think it's really cool that we're looking at AJ Styles versus Randy Orton, Miz versus Shane McMahon, Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns. I love good singles matches. And right there, you've got three with no title on the line that are just about settling a grudge. I love a WrestleMania match that's a singles match with no title on the line, and the only reason it's happening is because we've built up this story where we want to see these two guys settle their beef. I think if you look down that WrestleMania card right now, on paper, it's pretty incredible. You've got, as I just said, AJ versus Randy, hypothetically, AJ versus Randy, Miz versus Shane, Drew versus Roman, Brock versus Seth, Ronda versus Becky versus Charlotte. You've got the story that we'll talk about in a moment with Kurt Angle. You got a story that we'll talk about in the moment, Triple H and Batista, and you've got your WWE Championship match. That's 8 huge attractions that were already kind of assured are going to happen, and we still don't know, what Bobby Lashley's the new Intercontinental Champion. What does he do? Who's going to be Asuka's opponent? What are the Usos going to do? What's the Revival going to do? We got a whole bunch of titles that are up in the air. We're figuring out, are we going to get Cedric Alexander or Tony Nese getting that Cruiserweight title shot? I'm assuming it'll be on the kickoff show. No disrespect to the Cruiserweights, but I'm assuming it'll be on the kickoff show, and it'll be one of the matches that people talk about that makes the kickoff show worth watching. An appearance by the last professional broadcaster, Sam Roberts, in a Cruiserweight Championship match, I would say that sounds like a kickoff show you can't miss. And of course, what's going to happen with guys like what happens with the U.S. champion Samoa Joe? What about Mustafa Ali, huh? You know, we had Mustafa Ali on the watch along. Pat McAfee and me, and I think R-Truth was in the room at the time. And Mustafa Ali was already talking about things that he had planned for his WrestleMania entrance. What happens with Mustafa Ali at WrestleMania? He's had a hell of a second half of this year. What happens? Remains to be seen. It's going to be a lot of fun to find out, though. WrestleMania is really building up into something awesome. Speaking of WrestleMania, that goes to story number 3, and that's the announcement on Raw. So, I had a phone call, and I usually don't name drop, from Kevin Undergaro, who hosts The Tomorrow Show over on the Notsam network at youtube.com/Notsam. He is one of the founders and creators of AfterBuzz TV. He got married to Maria Menounos a couple of New Years ago, and he's a huge wrestling fan. I'm sure that Maria will be doing something at WrestleMania, and Kevin will be by her side as always. But he called me, and he said a few weeks ago, hey, man, I turned on Raw. Why do you suppose Jinder Mahal lost to Kurt Angle? I kind of thought that was going to be Jinder's spot to shine. And I said, well, I think that they're trying to spend some time rebuilding Kurt Angle so that he can go into WrestleMania with something. And that's clearly what was going on. We've got Kurt Angle's final match happening at WrestleMania this year. He announced it. He was in Pittsburgh. He said, tonight will be my last match in Pittsburgh, and then WrestleMania will be my farewell match. It's kind of a shame in a way that Kurt Angle's already gone into the Hall of Fame, because it would be cool to give him the whole weekend. But if we're going to hype this up as being the farewell match for Kurt Angle, I think it's got to be something special. You could do, of those names that we mentioned, you could do a Samoa Joe match with Kurt Angle, but I think that would be a little bit complicated in the sense that, Samoa Joe is on SmackDown, Kurt Angle's on Raw, the U.S. Championship. It's possible. Samoa Joe could pull it off, but I don't know. Of course, Baron Corbin is always a possibility, but we've kind of seen it at this point, and we want to have something that'll be a marquee. You've got to believe that Kurt Angle is the type that if he knows this is his farewell match, is going to leave everything is going to be left in the ring. I mean, every ounce and fiber of his being is going to be left there. So, is this the moment that you bring John Cena in? We've heard the rumblings that there's going to be a John Cena match at WrestleMania. Is John Cena versus Kurt Angle Kurt Angle's last match? Of course, it was John Cena's first main roster match, and he almost beat Kurt Angle. Does John Cena come back? Now, maybe, but this poses the question. John Cena's role in the WWE for the last, I feel like it's over a year at this point, has been losing. He loses to people. He's lost his mojo, whether it's The Undertaker, whether it's Roman Reigns, whether it's getting eliminated quickly at Survivor Series. John Cena comes in, and he loses. Does John Cena losing, I want to see Kurt Angle lose his last match, just because I think it would be poetic. I want to see him wrestle his heart out and then lose. I think that would be a better story, and then stand up with his head held high, standing ovation, he gets that celebration. So, I mean, in my head, I go, okay, Kurt Angle won against John Cena in John Cena's first main roster match. I would like it if in Kurt Angle's last match in WWE, John Cena gets that victory back and John Cena wins. But John Cena beats Kurt Angle, and then what? He goes on to do another movie? It'd be kind of nice if it was a current roster WWE superstar that was having that moment. I honestly think that a great person to be in that position to have Kurt Angle's last match might be Mustafa Ali. Because I think that the moment, what I want to see in Kurt Angle's last match is Kurt Angle lose, and then the person that beats him raise Kurt Angle's hand in the air, points to him, walks out of the ring, and gives Kurt his moment. If Kurt's wrestling a bad guy, that doesn't really work. I like the idea of Mustafa Ali, this kid coming in, getting a high-profile match at WrestleMania. He deserves it. Beating Kurt Angle, getting that big spotlight, and then, giving Kurt Angle that one last moment, maybe one last milk bath in the middle of the ring at MetLife Stadium. That would be my pick. It's not my prediction. It's my pick. I think that I would like to see Mustafa Ali and Kurt Angle in Kurt's last match. People said The Undertaker. People said John Cena. I want it to be somebody on the main roster. Now, it won't be somebody on the main roster who gets the Triple H match because Batista comes out and does that promo with Triple H. That's story number 2. I think that Batista is doing a good job of turning the audience. It's interesting to me that they've decided that the story that's being told is that Batista is a bad guy and Triple H is a good guy. Personally, I don't know. I haven't talked to Triple H or Batista about it, believe it or not. But I think that that this storyline is probably mainly, a lot of it probably has to do with Batista. You know, Batista was very critical of the WWE after his last run. And he said many times he doesn't want to go back and just be told what to do. So I believe that Batista came in and wanted to be this guy. And, you know, Batista slobbering all over the microphone on Raw and saying, give me what I want, give me what I want, give me what I want. You know, maybe not executed to perfection, but I would still give it a solid B+. No irony intended there. But regardless, like, I'm super interested in the match. Like, it's one of the ones that I'm looking forward to the most. And it's a really well-told story. I mean, think about it. It starts at SmackDown 1000. After Batista said what he said to Triple H at SmackDown 1000, we all wanted it. We weren't sure it was going to happen. I think we were all pretty surprised when Batista did what he did to Ric Flair. Not in the sense that, oh my God, it's terrible, but in the sense that we didn't think that we all heard that Batista was at Raw, but we didn't think that that's how Batista was going to show himself. And then he's on Raw this week. I would imagine that he'll be on Raw at least 1 or 2 more times before WrestleMania to really sell us on this match. Because I think this is a match that after 1 or 2 more segments, we will be begging for. We will be begging for it. And I think it's going to be good. I like the addition of a no holds barred. Batista saying this is his last match. He did say that in the promo. One more match where I end my career by ending your career. I love that sentiment. And Batista's the man, so I'm excited about it. Story number 1 is Kofi Kingston, man. Let's really sit back and just realize how well this Kofi Kingston thing has worked. When you sit there, and this is WWE in 2019, you say what you want about WWE, but when they decided to shake things up, things have been shaken up. Things are changing in WWE. On SmackDown, you had a character in Becky Lynch that got so hot, so quickly and so unexpectedly that random segments were being interrupted by "We Want Becky" chants. What about the TLC pay-per-view? In the middle of Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose, "We Want Becky" chants are being heard. That is a force that sometimes you create something that's so great it's at the expense of the rest of the roster. It's very rare that you do that twice simultaneously. And when I turned on SmackDown and Shane McMahon is in the ring talking about The Miz in an angle that people care about, right? This wasn't a rejection of the Shane McMahon promo because people care about the Shane McMahon-Miz story and people still care about Becky just as much. But all of a sudden they're chanting, "We want Kofi." And you're like, oh my God. In 2 months, you have brought Kofi up to the level that Becky Lynch just got up to. Kofi and Becky are 2 of the biggest good guys of the moment right now in wrestling and in WWE, and it's outstanding what's going on. Obviously, everything that happened at Fastlane worked like a charm, and this idea that that Kofi's got to move heaven and earth to get this title shot, I think it's going to work. It really feels like, as I was watching Fastlane, I was getting a little concerned that they were going to turn Kofi's title shot into a fatal 4-way, which they still might, because we don't have a clear path to WrestleMania for Kevin Owens or Mustafa Ali, unless you put Mustafa with Kurt Angle, like I said. But I really, really, really hope that Kofi's match with Daniel Bryan is a one-on-one championship match. When I saw that next week on SmackDown, Kofi can get the WrestleMania title shot, by winning a gauntlet match against Sheamus and Cesaro and Eric Rowan and Samoa Joe and Randy Orton. I'm like, this is literally WWE 2K19 booking in a good way. These are the matches that you set up with your figures when you're like, you want to turn somebody into a superhero. This is total fantasy crazy booking, and they're doing it for Kofi Kingston, and it's going to work like a charm. I can't wait for next week's SmackDown, and I can't wait to watch Kofi shine in another gauntlet match. I think it's going to be terrific. I think it's going to be really, really great. That's all the time we got this week. It's a very, very busy, very, very busy week here on Not Sam Wrestling. Of course, we'll be back next week. We thank all of our supporters on Patreon, patreon.com/NotSamWrestling if you want to be one of them. And we'll be right here again next week with more Not Sam Wrestling. We'll see you then. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Follow at Not Sam on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Rate, review, and subscribe. This has been Not Sam Wrestling. Not Sam Wrestling.